"Sir, your wife is alive," said the poor girl to the millionaire who was crying at the funeral. Otavio Mendes, a businessman known in the real estate sector of Rio de Janeiro, kept his eyes fixed on the sealed casket in front of him, his tears mixing with the rainwater running down his face. It had been 3 days since the helicopter accident that supposedly took his wife Elisa's life. That was when a small hand touched his arm. Turning slowly, Otavio found a girl of about 12 years old, dressed simply with determined eyes. Before he could react, the girl stared at him with surprising intensity and said in a quiet but firm voice, "Sir, your wife is alive." Otavio felt like he had been punched in the stomach. The businessmen and socialites around him remained focused on the ceremony, oblivious to the interaction. He looked closely at the girl, trying to understand if this was some kind of cruel joke. "Who are you?" he asked, trying to contain the mix of anger and hope growing in his chest. "My name is Raquel. Mrs. Elisa used to help at the social project in Rocinha," the girl replied. "I saw her yesterday, sir, in a hospital in Jacarepagua. She's hurt, but she's alive. They're hiding her there." Otavio took a deep breath, feeling a sudden dizziness. The body in the sealed casket was not his wife's. Could it be possible? The investigators had said the identification was made through personal belongings and documents found after the helicopter crashed into the sea. The explanation for the sealed casket was the condition of the remains. "That doesn't make sense, girl. How do you—" "She gave me this," Raquel cut him off, holding out her closed hand. When the girl opened her fingers, Otavio saw a butterfly-shaped emerald pendant. The necklace he had given Elisa on their 10th wedding anniversary 3 months ago, the same one supposedly found on the body identified as hers. "Where did you get this?" Otavio's voice faltered as he took the pendant with trembling fingers. "She gave it to me, said I should find you and give it to you, said only you would believe me." Raquel's eyes shone with determination. "She's scared, sir. I think she doesn't remember things very well, but she remembers you." Otavio looked around and noticed his father-in-law Arnaldo talking to Mauricio. Almeida, his business partner, both were occasionally glancing in his direction. Arnaldo had never approved of his marriage to Elisa and had questioned Otavio's ability to take care of his only daughter from the beginning. Mauricio, meanwhile, had taken the reins of the company during the 3 days since the accident with an efficiency that now seemed suspicious. "Come with me." Otavio grabbed the girl's hand and led her away from the ceremony until they reached his car. "How did you get here?" he asked, looking into her eyes. "I took 2 buses. Mrs. Elisa always helped us in the project. My mom cleans the hospital where she is. That's how I saw her there." Raquel explained, her voice faltering a little. "When I saw the newspaper talking about her funeral, I knew something was wrong." Otavio's mind raced. It was impossible, but at the same time he knew that pendant. It was unique, made especially for Elisa. How could that girl have it unless— "Which hospital is she in?" he asked, determined. "Santa Clara, in Jacarepagua, in an isolated room on the top floor. It says patient 507 on the door," Raquel answered promptly. "There are people watching her all the time. My mom said it feels more like a prison than a hospital." Otavio opened the car door and motioned for the girl to get in. "I'll take you home later, but first I need you to show me where she is." As he drove hurriedly through the streets of Rio de Janeiro, Otavio tried to organize his thoughts. If Elisa was alive, who was in the casket? And more importantly, who had an interest in making him believe his wife was dead? "What's your mother like?" he asked Raquel, still suspicious. "Mrs. Celia. She's been cleaning the hospital for 3 years. She always wears a light blue uniform," the girl answered, watching the city pass by through the window of the luxury car. "We live in a community near the hospital. Mrs. Elisa went there every week, brought books, helped the kids with homework. She's the one who taught me to read properly." The mention of books and reading made Otavio feel a pang in his chest. It was just like Elisa. She had always believed in education as the path to social transformation. While he was busy building his real estate empire, she dedicated herself to social projects, often visiting communities to personally oversee the initiatives she funded. Traffic was congested on the yellow line. Ottavio tapped his fingers impatiently on the steering wheel. Every minute felt like an eternity. Your business partner, the guy with glasses who was there, he went to the hospital yesterday, Raquel suddenly commented. Ottavio turned quickly to face her. Mauricio, are you sure? Yes, he was talking to the doctor in the hallway. My mom was cleaning nearby and heard them saying they needed to transfer the special patient before someone found out. Ottavio's heart raced. If Mauricio was involved, this could mean Elisa's accident was connected to the company's business. In the weeks leading up to the supposed accident, Elisa had mentioned being worried about some contracts she found in their home office. Documents Ottavio didn't even know existed, signed in his name. Raquel, this is very serious. If your mom heard something like that, you could be in danger, he warned, feeling responsible for the girl who was now risking her own safety to save Elisa. The girl shrugged with a maturity that contrasted with her age. We're always in danger, sir. But Mrs. Elisa said there are good people in the world too, like you. The girl's simple words hit him deeply. Elisa had always seen the best in people, even in him, especially in him, who had not been the husband he promised to be for years. The Santa Clara Hospital was an old, imposing building, far from the center of Jacarapagua. Ottavio parked the car a few blocks away for safety. Come with me to the side entrance. That's where my mom goes out to smoke, Raquel said, already walking confidently along the uneven sidewalk. As they walked, Ottavio noticed his phone ringing insistently. It was Paulo, his assistant, probably wondering where he had gone in the middle of his wife's funeral. He ignored the call. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially to subscribe to the channel. That really helps us, especially since we're just starting out. Continuing, the hospital's side entrance was discreet, a small service door half hidden by poorly maintained bushes. Raquel pointed out the security shift change times and explained how to get to the service elevator without passing through. The main reception. My mom gets off at 6. If we wait, she can help, the girl suggested. Ottavio checked his watch. 40 minutes to go. Are you sure it's safe for us to stay here? He asked, scanning the surroundings. We can go over there. Raquel pointed to a diner across the street. We can see who comes in and out. In the modest diner, Ottavio ordered a coffee for himself and a hot chocolate for Raquel. Sitting near the window, they watched the hospital while talking. How did you meet Elisa? Ottavio asked, realizing he knew little about his wife's projects. She showed up at school one day saying she wanted to build a community library. At first, we thought it was just talk, you know. A lot of rich people come by, take pictures and disappear. Raquel stirred her chocolate thoughtfully, but she came back. Every week she brought new books and sat with us to read. She even fought with the city hall to fix the school's roof when it leaked. Ottavio smiled sadly. That sounded exactly like Elisa, determined, persistent, and genuine. In recent years, as the business expanded, he had grown distant from her, buried in meetings, trips, and an obsession with growing his wealth. Meanwhile, she had found purpose in helping people like Raquel. She talks about you, you know, the girl said, watching him over the rim of her mug. She says you built everything from nothing, that you were a bricklayer's son and became a businessman. She's proud. The words hit Ottavio like a blow. Elisa still spoke of him with pride, even after years of emotional neglect, after so many arguments about his absences, about the money spent on social projects, about the future they seemed to build in opposite directions. I wasn't always a good husband, he admitted more to himself than to Raquel. My mom says we can always change, the girl replied simply. Look, that's her. A woman in a light blue uniform came out the hospital's side door, lighting a cigarette. As soon as she stepped onto the sidewalk, she had the same curly hair as Raquel, though shorter, and carried a worn shoulder bag. Let's go, Ottavio said, already on his feet, leaving the half-finished mug of chocolate. He left some bills on the table, far more than necessary, and followed the girl across the street. "Mom!" Raquel called softly. Celia turned, alarmed. Her face showed initial relief upon seeing her daughter, then concern as she noticed the well-dressed man beside her. "Raquel, what are you doing here? And who is this?" she asked, looking at Otavio suspiciously. "He's Mrs. Elisa's husband, Mom, the one in room 507, Raquel explained quickly. "He came to get her." Celia turned pale, looking around as if checking to see if someone was watching. "You can't stay here. It's dangerous," she whispered, pulling her daughter closer. "That woman is not a normal patient. There are important people involved." "Ma'am, please." Otavio stepped forward. "If my wife is in there, I need to see her. They're making me believe she's dead." Celia studied him for a moment as if evaluating his sincerity. "Are you Otavio?" she finally asked. He felt a wave of hope. "She doesn't remember much, but she remembers your name. She repeats it sometimes," Celia said, still hesitant. "Look, I'll risk my job if I help you. I have 2 kids younger than Raquel to raise on my own." Otavio pulled his wallet from his pocket. "How much do you need, Ma'am?" Celia looked offended. "I don't want your money. I want a guarantee that my family will be safe. There's a doctor, a nurse, and security involved in this. It's not a joke." Otavio put away his wallet, ashamed of having offered money so quickly. It was his automatic reflex to solve problems with his financial power. "I apologize." "You're right," he admitted. "I promise I'll do my best to ensure your safety. I have contacts who can help if necessary." Celia took another drag from her cigarette, thinking, "There's an emergency stairwell in the back. The security guard there usually sleeps during the night shift. Room 507 is on the top floor, west wing," she finally explained. "But I'd better go in first, see what the situation is like today. Some days there are more people around. We can wait." Otavio agreed, feeling adrenaline surge through his veins. "Raquel, take him to the car and wait there. I'll check and send a message to your phone," Celia instructed her daughter, stubbing out the cigarette on the sole of her shoe. As they walked back to the car, Otavio noticed a dark vehicle parked a few meters from the hospital with 2 men inside. Something about them seemed off. "Raquel, do you know those men?" he asked discreetly. The girl looked in the indicated direction and shook her head. "Never seen them. There's always weird people around here since Mrs. Elisa arrived." In the car, Otavio tried to organize his thoughts. If Elisa was alive, he'd need a plan to get her out safely and find out who was behind the deception and why. Raquel's phone vibrated. A message from Celia. "Room's empty. They transferred her early this morning." Otavio felt his blood run cold. They were too late. "Where could Elisa be now? Can your mother find out where they took her?" he asked, trying to control the panic in his voice. Raquel was already typing quickly. "Where to?" The answer took a few minutes. "No one knows, or they won't say, but they left behind a folder with documents. I'll grab it." "Your mother is very brave," Otavio said, impressed. "We do what we have to do." Raquel shrugged again, with the maturity that only early adversity could forge. 20 minutes later, which felt like an eternity, Celia appeared walking briskly down the sidewalk. She got into the back seat of the car, breathless. "I couldn't get the folder. It was locked in the doctor's office," she explained, frustrated, "but I overheard the nurses talking. Seems they transferred her to a private clinic in Petropolis." "Petropolis?" Otavio repeated, confused. "Why would they take Elisa to a city over an hour away?" "It's what they said. Saint Raphael Clinic. I know it because my cousin worked there," Celia continued. "It's a discreet place for rich people who want privacy. They treat mental health issues, you know." The implication was clear. Were they trying to make it seem like Elisa had psychological problems, or were they just using the clinic as a front to keep her hidden? "I need to go there," Otavio decided on the spot. "Now?" Raquel asked, looking out the window. The sky was beginning to darken. "No, first, I'll take you both to a safe place," he replied, starting the car. "Then I'll go to Petropolis." "We're going with you," Celia declared, surprising him. "If that woman is really your wife, she'll need familiar faces when she wakes up. She trusts Raquel." Ottavio hesitated. Involving mother and daughter in something potentially dangerous didn't seem wise. "Mrs. Celia, I don't know what we're facing. It could be risky." "We already live with risk, mister." "Ottavio," she replied firmly, "and if it weren't for your wife, my Raquel wouldn't have learned to read properly, wouldn't have gotten a scholarship to that private school. I owe her that." The determination in Celia's eyes was the same he'd seen in Raquel. He realized there was no point in arguing. "All right, but we'll need a plan," he conceded, driving toward downtown Rio. First, they needed a safe place to spend the night and organize the next step. Ottavio couldn't go back home, where he was likely being awaited after the funeral. He also didn't trust any of his close contacts. If Mauricio was involved, who else might be? He decided on a discreet hotel in Botafogo, where he could check in without drawing attention. He paid for 2 connecting rooms in cash and requested that no information about his stay be recorded. Once in the room, Ottavio tried to recap everything he knew. The supposed helicopter accident happened as Elisa returned from an event in Angra dos Reis. The pilot had reported technical problems shortly before losing contact. Search teams found wreckage and, according to authorities, human remains identified through Elisa's jewelry and documents. The coffin had been kept closed at his own request. He couldn't bear to see his wife in that state. Now he realized how manipulated he had been. If Elisa was alive, who had planned all this? And why? Maybe the answer lay in the documents she found weeks earlier. Contracts supposedly signed by him, which he had no knowledge of. Ottavio grabbed his laptop and accessed the company system remotely. He needed to check all recent transactions, all contracts signed in the past few months. Something there might explain what was going on. After hours of analyzing documents, he found something strange, a series of transfers to an offshore company called Serra Azul Empreendimentos. The amounts were significant and began exactly 3 months before Elisa's supposed accident. A quick search revealed Serra Azul had been recently registered and listed Jorge Almeida, Mauricio's brother, as one of the directors. "Son of a bitch," Ottavio muttered, feeling anger rising. Celia, who was sitting on the bed beside a sleeping Raquel, looked up from her phone. "Did you find something?" "I think so. My partner may be embezzling company funds," Ottavio replied, massaging his temples. "But I still don't get why fake Elisa's death." "Maybe she found out," Celia suggested wisely. "Your wife talked a lot about helping with the business, learning more about the company." Ottavio remembered how Elisa had shown interest in understanding the company better. He always downplayed her efforts, telling her to focus on her social projects. Now he bitterly regretted it. She mentioned some strange documents she found in the office. She must have discovered something, he agreed, closing the laptop. "Tomorrow morning we're going to Petropolis. We need to find her before they move her again." The next morning, Ottavio woke up startled by knocking at the door. For a moment he panicked, thinking they'd been found, but it was just room service with the breakfast he had ordered. The night before, while eating, they planned the day. Ottavio handed Celia and Raquel new clothes he had requested from the hotel reception so they could better blend in among the patients and visitors at a luxury clinic in Petropolis. "I'll say we're a family visiting a hospitalized relative," Ottavio explained. "If we can get in, we need to find Elisa discreetly and figure out a way to get her out." "What if there's security?" Raquel asked, spreading jam on her bread. "I have a few police contacts not connected to Mauricio," Ottavio replied, "but I'll only call them if we're sure Elisa is there. We can't draw attention just yet." Ottavio's phone rang. It was Paulo, his assistant again. This time he decided to answer. "Ottavio, where are you? We're all worried." Paulo's voice sounded genuinely alarmed. "I'm fine, Paulo. I needed some time alone," Ottavio replied, keeping his voice steady. "Mauricio is furious. You disappeared in the middle of your wife's funeral." Paolo continued, and Mr. Arnaldo is threatening to call the lawyers. He says you're not mentally fit to run the company. So that was the plan. With Elisa dead and Ottavio declared mentally unfit, Mauricio would have a clear path to total control of the company. Tell them I'm on a spiritual retreat. I'll be back in a few days, Ottavio improvised. And Paolo, don't trust Mauricio. Don't tell him where I am, even if he insists. There was a brief silence on the line. Something happened, didn't it? Paolo asked, lowering his voice. I've noticed some strange things in the company since the accident. Paolo had been his assistant for over 10 years. If there was anyone Ottavio could still trust professionally, it was him. I'll explain everything when I can. For now, keep your eyes open and don't sign anything in my name, Ottavio instructed before hanging up. The trip to Petropolis took a little over an hour. The San Rafael clinic was located in a remote area, surrounded by dense Atlantic forest vegetation. The main building was an old construction reminiscent of imperial-era residences, with wide gardens and a privileged view of the city. Ottavio parked the car at a safe distance and observed the movement. The place seemed quiet, with only a few visitors coming and going through the main entrance. Looks like a dollhouse, Raquel commented, admiring the imposing building. Is this the kind of place where rich people hide their secrets? Celia responded, adjusting the simple yet elegant dress Ottavio had provided. How are we getting in? Ottavio had thought about that during the trip. We'll use part of the truth. I'll say we're looking for my sister, who was recently admitted. I'll say there was a misunderstanding in the family, and we need to check if she's here. The plan was simple and straightforward. Ottavio knew that places like that valued discretion, but also respected money and social status. At the reception, they were greeted by a young woman with an impeccable appearance and a polite smile. "Good morning, how may I help you?" she asked, discreetly assessing Ottavio's elegant clothes. "Good morning," he replied, assuming the confident posture he used in business meetings. "We're looking for my sister, Helena Mendez. We believe she was transferred here yesterday from a hospital in Rio." The receptionist checked the computer. "We don't have any recently admitted patients under that name," she replied, still smiling. Ottavio had expected that. Elisa would certainly be under another name. Perhaps she was registered under a different name. She was confused. "It's a delicate situation, you understand." He lowered his voice, leaning slightly over the counter. "There was a family crisis, and my brother-in-law may have used another name to make it harder for us to find her." The receptionist seemed to hesitate, her gaze shifting between the computer screen and the well-dressed man in front of her. "Ma'am, I understand that discretion is a core value of this institution," Ottavio continued, discreetly pulling a stack of bills from his wallet. "But this is a family matter. We just need to know if my sister is safe." He placed the money on the counter, partially covering it with his hand. The receptionist looked around, checking if anyone was watching. "We had a transfer yesterday afternoon. Female patient, approximately 40 years old, registered as Maria Lima." She spoke in a low voice, pushing the money back toward Ottavio. "I can't accept this, sir, but if your sister is here, I hope you resolve your family issues." Ottavio put the money away, surprised and relieved by the young woman's honesty. "Thank you. Can I see her?" "I'm sorry, but visits for new patients are only allowed after 72 hours of adaptation. Clinic policy," she replied, the polite smile returning to her face. "But I can assure you that all our patients receive the best treatment." Ottavio thanked her and led Celia and Raquel out of the reception area. "And now," Celia asked as soon as they stepped away, "how are we going to get in?" "We need a plan B," Ottavio replied, observing the building's structure. "Raquel, can you see that window on the second floor? It's partially open." The girl followed his gaze and nodded. "I think we can climb up that tree over there," she suggested quickly. "No way!" Celia exclaimed. "My daughter is not climbing any buildings." "Calm down, Donna Celia. That's not what I had in mind," Ottavio hurried to clarify. I was just thinking maybe there are other, less guarded entrances. They strolled through the gardens as if they were simply enjoying the scenery. Ottavio noticed a side entrance, likely used for supply and services, where some staff were smoking during their break. There, he indicated discreetly. If we can get some uniforms, maybe we can get in without drawing attention. Can I try? Offered Celia. I've worked in places like this before. I know how to blend in. Ottavio hesitated, worried about putting her at risk. Are you sure? Leave it to me, she replied confidently. Stay here with Raquel. Celia walked naturally toward the group of employees, lighting a cigarette she had borrowed from one of them the night before. She started a casual conversation, pretending to be a new hire on her first day. Ottavio watched, amazed at how easily she blended in, laughing and gesturing comfortably. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to leave a like and especially subscribe to the channel. That helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Continuing. After a few minutes, Celia returned, smiling. I talked to the girl from the laundry. I said I was a cousin of one of the nurses who's sick today. She let me in to pick up some forgotten uniforms, she explained triumphantly. We just have to wait until she goes to lunch in 20 minutes. My mum is smart, Raquel commented proudly. Ottavio agreed, impressed by Celia's ability to earn strangers' trust. Maybe that's why she and Elisa had connected, even though they came from such different worlds. As agreed, 20 minutes later, Celia entered through the side door and returned shortly after, discreetly carrying 2 folded uniforms under her arm. I could only get 2, she whispered. 1 nurse and 1 cleaning assistant. Raquel stays here in the car, Ottavio decided. You know these environments better, Celia. Wear the assistant uniform, and I'll go as the nurse. They changed in the car, keeping the tinted windows up. Ottavio felt strange in the oversized white uniform, but tried to adjust it as best as he could. Remember, we're looking for Maria Lima's room, he reminded Celia. If we get separated, we meet back here in 1 hour, max. Raquel watched everything attentively. Be careful, Mom, she said, as Celia leaned in to kiss her forehead. Lock the doors and don't open for anyone, Ottavio instructed the girl. If something goes wrong, use my phone to call this number. He handed her a piece of paper with Paolo's number on it. Entering through the service door, Ottavio and Celia walked down a corridor leading to the clinic's interior. Celia moved naturally, pushing a cleaning cart she had found against a wall. Ottavio tried to imitate her ease, carrying a clipboard he had taken from a desk. The clinic's interior was as elegant as its exterior suggested, wide, well-lit hallways with discreet artwork. On the walls, it looked more like a luxury hotel than a medical institution. The inpatient wings must be on the 2nd floor, Celia whispered, noting the signage. I'll check the east side. You go west. Ottavio nodded, and they headed in opposite directions. He took a side staircase, avoiding the main elevator where he might run into other staff or doctors. On the 2nd floor, the corridors were quieter. Discreet signs marked the rooms only with numbers, no names. Ottavio walked with purpose, as if he were on an important task, while discreetly checking each door. He passed a nurse who merely nodded without questioning his presence. The disguise seemed to be working. He reached the end of the west corridor without finding any sign of Elisa. He was about to head back when he heard voices coming from a slightly open door. One of the voices sounded familiar. We can't keep her here much longer. People are already asking questions, said the voice Ottavio immediately recognized as Mauricio's. The medication has been effective. She remains confused about her own identity, replied another voice, probably a doctor. But I agree, we need a more permanent solution. Ottavio felt his blood boil. They were drugging Elisa so she wouldn't remember who she was. He had to control himself not to burst into the room. The important thing is that she doesn't remember the documents she saw. The rest doesn't matter, Mauricio continued. How long does the last dose's effect last? At least 12 hours. After that, we'll need to administer it again, replied the doctor, but I'm concerned about the long-term side effects. We can't continue with this protocol indefinitely. It won't be necessary. In a few days, when all the paperwork is settled, we can consider a more final resolution. Mauricio's voice sounded cold. Ottavio silently backed away, his heart pounding. He no longer had any doubts. Elisa was there, and her life was in real danger. He needed to find her immediately. He began checking the rooms on the other side of the corridor, now more urgently. The conversation he overheard made it clear that time was running out. As he turned into another hallway, he nearly collided with Celia. "I found her," she whispered, pulling him by the arm. "Room 217. There's a guard at the door, but he left to get coffee." They hurried to the indicated room. Ottavio peeked through the small window in the door, and his heart nearly stopped. There was Elisa, lying on a hospital bed connected to some monitors. Her face was pale, brown hair spread across the pillow. She was alive, but she looked sedated. "We need to get in before the guard comes back," urged Celia. Ottavio tested the doorknob. It was locked. "Damn," he muttered, looking around for something to use to open the door. Celia pulled a set of keys from her pocket. "I got it from the laundry girl. She said the master key is the silver one." Ottavio looked at the woman in front of him in awe. Celia continued to surprise him with her cleverness. The master key worked. They entered the room quickly, closing the door behind them. Ottavio rushed to Elisa's side, touching her face with trembling fingers. "Elisa, Elisa, it's me, Ottavio," he called softly, a lump in his throat. She didn't respond, but her eyelids fluttered slightly. "She's sedated," Celia observed, checking the IV in Elisa's arm. "We need to get her out of here before they notice she's gone." "How are we going to do that? We can't just carry her through the hallways," Ottavio said, still holding Elisa's hand. Celia looked out the window. "There's an emergency exit at the end of the hall. I saw it while cleaning. It leads to the back parking lot. I'll have to carry her," Ottavio decided, beginning to carefully remove the sensors and IV from Elisa's arm. At that moment, they heard footsteps in the hallway. The guard was returning. "Quick! Behind the door," Celia instructed, pulling Ottavio. They barely had time to hide before the door opened. The guard entered, briefly checked the patient and left again, closing the door behind him. "We have to move now," Ottavio decided, returning to Elisa's side. Carefully, he wrapped her in a sheet and lifted her in his arms. She was lighter than he remembered, as if she had lost weight in the days since the supposed accident. Celia opened the door and checked the hallway. It was empty. "Let's go left, quick." They walked as fast as possible, Ottavio carrying Elisa and Celia leading the way. They reached the emergency exit without encountering anyone. "This door might have an alarm," Ottavio warned. "We have no choice," Celia replied, pushing the door's crash bar. To their surprise, no alarm sounded. The door led to a small external staircase that descended to the parking lot, just as Celia had said. "My car is on the other side," Ottavio remembered, adjusting Elisa in his arms. "There's a service vehicle over there." Celia pointed to a white van parked near the emergency exit. "Do you think we can?" Ottavio understood immediately. "Can you check if it has keys?" Celia ran to the van and looked through the window. "Yes, they're in the ignition." It seemed like too much luck, but there was no time to question it. Celia opened the rear door, and Ottavio carefully placed Elisa in the cargo area, making her as comfortable as possible with the sheet. "I'll get Raquel and meet you on the main road, about 2 kilometers from here," Ottavio instructed, handing Celia the keys to his car. "Do you know how to drive?" "I learned from my ex-husband," she replied, already getting into the driver's seat of the van. Ottavio watched the van leave before running toward where he had left his car with Raquel. The improvised plan was risky, but it was their only chance. When he reached the car, Raquel was sitting in the passenger seat, her anxious face pressed against the window. "Where's my mum? Did you find Donna Elisa?" she asked, as soon as Ottavio got in. "Yes, both of them. They're waiting for us on the main road," Ottavio replied, quickly starting the car. As he drove to the agreed meeting point, Ottavio kept his eyes on the rearview mirror, expecting security vehicles to come after them at any moment. But the road remained quiet. They found the van parked on the shoulder a few kilometers ahead. Celia was waving from outside. "She's waking up," she informed as soon as Ottavio pulled up beside her, but she's still confused. Ottavio transferred Elisa to the back seat of his car, which was more comfortable. She murmured unintelligible words, her eyes opening and closing slowly. "Elisa, it's me, Ottavio." "You're safe now," he said, holding her hand. She briefly focused on his face, a spark of recognition lighting up her eyes before she closed them again. "We need to take her to a trustworthy hospital," Ottavio decided. "We can't go back to Rio. That'll be the first place they look." "My aunt lives in Teresopolis," Celia suggested. "It's a small town, but isolated, and she knows a reliable doctor there." Teresopolis was less than an hour from Petropolis, in the opposite direction of Rio de Janeiro. It seemed like a good option. "Let's go there, then," Ottavio agreed. "You and Raquel come in my car. We need to abandon the van. I've already taken care of it." Celia smiled, pointing inside the van. "I took the key and left the windows open. Someone will take it before anyone realizes it's missing from the clinic." Once again, Ottavio admired the cleverness of that woman. In just a few hours, she had shown more practical intelligence and courage than many of the executives he worked with. During the trip to Teresopolis, Elisa fluctuated between moments of consciousness and unconsciousness. When awake, she looked around, confused, not seeming to fully recognize where she was or who was with her. "What did they give her?" Ottavio asked Celia, worried. "I'm not sure, but I saw bottles of benzodiazepines in the room," Celia replied. "They're strong meds that affect memory. My ex-father-in-law used to take them to sleep and would be confused the next day." Raquel sat in the back seat next to Elisa, carefully holding her hand. "Mrs. Elisa, it's me, Raquel. Do you remember me?" she asked gently. To everyone's surprise, Elisa turned her face toward the girl's voice, her eyes opening a bit wider. "Raquel," she murmured, her voice hoarse from lack of use. "LVZ. "That's right," the girl smiled brightly. "You gave me books. Remember the library?" Elisa nodded weakly before closing her eyes again. "She remembered," Raquel announced proudly. "She's going to be okay." Ottavio felt a wave of hope. If Elisa was starting to remember, maybe the effects of the drugs were wearing off. Celia's aunt, Donna Josefa, lived in a simple house on the outskirts of Teresopolis. It was already night when they arrived. The grey-haired woman received them with surprise, but didn't ask many questions upon seeing Elisa's condition. "Put her in the back room," she instructed, already preparing hot water and clean towels. "I'll call Dr. Mateus. He's discreet and trustworthy." Ottavio carried Elisa to the designated room, laying her carefully on the bed. She was more conscious now, her eyes scanning the unfamiliar room with apprehension. "Are you okay, love?" "You're safe," Ottavio reassured, holding her hand. "I'm here with you." Elisa stared at him for a long moment, as if trying to piece together fragments of memory. "Ottavio," she finally said, her voice a bit stronger. "What happened?" Before he could answer, Elisa became suddenly agitated. "The papers!" she exclaimed, trying to sit up. "Mauricio, forged signatures." "Easy, easy," Ottavio gently reassured her, holding her by the shoulders. "I already know about the papers. You're safe now." She leaned back, exhausted by the effort. "They got me. Helicopter," she murmured, the words coming out disjointed. "Made it look like an accident." Ottavio felt his stomach churn. So there had been no accident. Elisa had been kidnapped during what should have been a routine helicopter trip. Dr. Mateus arrived about half an hour later. He was a middle-aged man with a serious, competent expression. He examined Elisa thoroughly, checking her vital signs and reactions. "She was sedated with powerful psychotropic drugs," he concluded after the exam. "We need to let her body eliminate the substances naturally. Forcing the process could be harmful." "How long will that take?" Ottavio asked anxiously. 2 to 3 days for full elimination, but she should start becoming more lucid in the next few hours, the doctor explained. The important thing now is to keep her hydrated and resting, and of course far from whoever did this to her. The doctor prescribed homemade electrolyte solution and vitamins, promising to return the next morning. Thank you, doctor. Ottavio extended his hand. How much do I owe you? Dr. Mateus waved it off. Donna Josefa already explained part of the situation. I'm not charging. Just do me a favor and report whoever did this when your wife is better, he said, packing up his instruments. And if you need a medical statement about her condition, count on me. After the doctor left, Ottavio stayed by Elisa's side, who now slept a more natural sleep. Celia entered the room with a tray containing coffee and homemade bread. You need to eat something, she insisted, placing the tray on a small table. You won't help your wife if you get sick too. Ottavio accepted the coffee, realizing he hadn't eaten anything substantial since breakfast. How can I thank you for everything you're doing? He asked sincerely. You didn't even know me until yesterday. Celia sat on the edge of the bed, adjusting the covers. Over Elisa. Your wife changed my daughter's life, she answered simply. Before the books, before her help, Raquel thought she had no future. Now she dreams of becoming a teacher. The simplicity of the response touched Ottavio deeply. Elisa had always seen value where he only saw numbers. Perhaps that was why she had connected with people like Celia and Raquel, who understood the true meaning of the word value. When all this is over, I want you and Raquel to come live in a better place, he offered. I can help with her schooling, with a better job for you. That's not necessary, Celia smiled softly. But if you really want to help, the community where we live needs a decent daycare. The mothers have nowhere to leave their kids when they go to work. Ottavio understood. It wasn't charity Celia wanted, but dignity for her community. The next morning, Elisa was visibly more lucid. She could sit up in bed with help and immediately recognized Ottavio. I thought I'd never see you again, she said, touching her husband's face with trembling fingers. They told me you believed I was dead. And I did, Ottavio admitted, ashamed, until Raquel showed up. At the funeral, Elisa smiled at hearing the girl's name. Raquel is here. Is she okay? We're all okay now, Ottavio assured her, but we need to understand exactly what happened. Who did this to you and why? Elisa took a deep breath, organizing her still cloudy thoughts. I started helping with organizing the company's documents, remember? She began slowly. I found strange contracts signed with your name, but it didn't look like your signature. They were agreements with companies that had never been mentioned in meetings. Ottavio nodded, the contracts with Serra Azul he had discovered. I confronted Mauricio, Elisa continued. At first he seemed surprised. Then he said they were preliminary projects you preferred to keep secret. I didn't believe him. I decided to investigate further. She paused, taking a sip of water Ottavio offered. On the day of the accident, I was returning from Angra, where I went to check out a plot of land mentioned in one of the contracts. It was supposed to be the site of a future resort worth millions. But there was nothing there, Ottavio, just abandoned, worthless land. A real estate scam, Ottavio concluded, the pieces falling into place. Yes, and it seems Mauricio wasn't acting alone. When I got in the helicopter to return, I realized it wasn't our usual pilot. After that, I only remember waking up somewhere, confused. They kept me sedated, moving me from place to place. Ottavio felt anger rise. As Elisa spoke, Mauricio had not only betrayed his trust in business, but had endangered his wife's life, all for money. We'll make Mauricio pay for this, he promised, holding Elisa's hand. As soon as you're strong enough, we'll go to the police. It's not that simple, Elisa warned. I overheard conversations while I was sedated. Powerful people are involved, Ottavio. Politicians, judges, it's a big scheme. That explained why Mauricio had felt so confident in faking Elisa's death. He had protection. No matter who's involved, Ottavio declared firmly, we'll expose them all. At that moment, Raquel ran into the room. There's a police car stopping out front, she warned, scared. Ottavio ran to the window. A patrol car was indeed parking in front of Donna Josefa's house. How did they find us so fast? He asked aloud. Celia entered shortly after, pale. The van must have been found. Maybe it had a tracker, she suggested. What do we do? Ottavio thought quickly. They couldn't flee with Elisa still weak, and if the officers were working for Maurizio, turning themselves in would put everyone at risk. We'll talk to them, he finally decided, but don't mention Elisa. Just say we're friends, visiting Donna Josefa. Ottavio went downstairs to answer the door before they could knock. 2 officers were waiting on the house's small porch. Good morning, officers. Can I help you? He greeted, trying to sound as natural as possible. Good morning. We're looking for an Ottavio Mendez, said the older officer, checking a small notebook. We have information he might be in this area. That's me, Ottavio confirmed, seeing little point in denying it. Is something wrong? The officers exchanged glances. Mr. Mendez, we need you to come with us to the station. There's a kidnapping charge against you. Kidnapping? Ottavio repeated in disbelief. Who? A patient from the San Rafael clinic in Petropolis, a woman named Maria Lima, the officer explained. The admission record indicates she has severe mental disorders, and witnesses saw you removing her irregularly from the clinic yesterday. So that was Mauricio's strategy. Accuse Ottavio of kidnapping a psychiatric patient when he had actually rescued his own wife. Officers, I believe there's been a misunderstanding, Ottavio began, staying calm. Maria Lima is actually my wife, Elisa Mendez. She was taken to that clinic against her will after being declared dead in a supposed accident. The police officers seemed confused. Do you have any proof of that, sir? Asked the younger one. I do, Ottavio replied, buying time to think. My wife is inside. May I call her to confirm her identity? That would be appropriate, agreed the older officer, still suspicious. Ottavio went back into the house, finding Celia in the hallway. They think I kidnapped a psychiatric patient, he whispered. I need Elisa to confirm who she is. Is she in any condition to do that? Celia nodded. I gave her some strong coffee. She's more alert now. Ottavio returned to the bedroom, where Elisa was now sitting on the bed with Raquel by her side. Elisa, I need you to come with me, he explained quickly. There are police officers outside. Mauricio is accusing me of kidnapping a psychiatric patient named Maria Lima. I need you to confirm your identity. Elisa immediately understood the gravity of the situation. Help me up, she said, extending her hand. Bring me my bag if it's been recovered. What bag? Ottavio asked, confused. The one I had with me in the helicopter. It has my documents. She hesitated, looking at Raquel, and a copy of the contracts I found. Elisa finished in a lower voice. I made copies of everything before confronting Mauricio. Ottavio's heart raced. If Elisa had concrete proof, they could incriminate Mauricio immediately. We haven't recovered anything, ma'am, he said, disappointed. It must be with them. No, Elisa gave a faint smile. I handed it to Raquel when I saw her at the hospital. I told her to keep it safe. Ottavio and Elisa looked at the girl, who smiled shyly. It's with me, Raquel confirmed, pulling a plastic bag wrapped in duct tape from under the bed. Miss Elisa said not to show it to anyone except you. Ottavio took the package, feeling its significant weight. Inside could be all the evidence needed to bring down Mauricio and his accomplices. This is perfect, he said with relief. Now, let's talk to the police. Leaning on Ottavio, Elisa slowly walked to the living room, where the officers were waiting. Her appearance still showed signs of captivity and drug exposure. She was pale, with deep under-eye circles, and visibly weakened. Good morning, officers, she greeted with as much dignity as she could muster. I'm Elisa Mendez, wife of Ottavio Mendez. I am not Maria Lima, and I do not suffer from any mental disorders. I was kidnapped and held against my will under the influence of drugs. The officers observed her with a mix of skepticism and surprise. Ma'am, "We have a medical report stating otherwise," the older officer argued, "and we have a death certificate in the name of Elisa Mendez." "A fraudulent certificate," Otavio interjected, carefully unwrapping the package Raquel had kept. "Just like these contracts that were signed using a forged version of my wife's signature. She uncovered the scheme, and that's why they tried to silence her." He handed the officers a folder containing copies of contracts, reports, and even photos of the land in Angra that Elisa had mentioned. The younger officer flipped through the documents, his expression gradually changing. "Jorge, this looks serious," he commented to his partner. "Look at these signatures and these amounts." The older officer, George, examined the papers more closely. "If what you're saying is true, we're dealing with a case much more serious than a simple kidnapping," he concluded, looking at Otavio and Elisa. "But we need to go through official procedures. You'll need to come to the station to give a formal statement." "We're willing to do that," Otavio agreed. "But my wife is still recovering from the effects of the drugs that were forcibly administered to her. I'd like to request the presence of a doctor at the station to assess her current condition." "I can arrange that," Jorge nodded. "And I suggest you bring all documents and evidence you have." While preparing to go with the officers, Otavio made a quick call to Paulo, his assistant. "Paulo, I need you to contact Dr. Torres immediately," he instructed, referring to the family's trusted lawyer. "Explain the situation and ask him to meet us at the Terrasopolis police station as soon as possible." "Otavio, thank God you're okay." Paulo's voice sounded relieved. "Things are crazy here. Mauricio called an emergency board meeting and is trying to take over the company's presidency, claiming your disappearance and mental instability." "That doesn't surprise me," Otavio replied. "He tried to kill my wife, Paulo." "What? But Elisa, the funeral?" Paulo stammered, confused. "It was all staged. Elisa is alive and we're about to present evidence of Mauricio's crimes," Otavio explained quickly. "I need you to access the company's main server and back up all financial files from the past 6 months. Mauricio might try to destroy evidence once he finds out we're at the police station." "I'll do it immediately," Paulo promised. "And Otavio, be careful. Mauricio has powerful connections." After hanging up, Otavio joined Elisa, Celia, and Raquel in the living room. Donna Josefa had prepared a strong coffee for everyone before they headed to the station. "You don't have to come with us," Otavio said to Celia. "You've already done more than we could have hoped for." "No way," Celia replied firmly. "We're going to see this through. Miss Elisa needs witnesses who aren't family. My testimony about her condition at the hospital will be important." Elisa squeezed Celia's hand in, gratitude, tears glistening in her eyes. "I'll never forget what you've done for me," she said, her voice breaking. "You and Raquel are part of our family now." At the Terrasopolis police station, the case quickly escalated into a much larger investigation than a supposed kidnapping. The lead officer, upon examining the documents provided by Elisa, realized the seriousness of the accusations against Mauricio Almeida and summoned officers from the Financial Crimes Division. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps those of us just starting out. Now, continuing, Dr. Torres, the Mendez family lawyer, arrived a few hours later, bringing with him a renowned forensic expert to analyze the forged signatures on the contracts. Elisa, still weak but increasingly lucid, gave a detailed statement about everything she had discovered and experienced. Celia testified about the conditions in which she found Elisa at the hospital and about hearing Mauricio planning her transfer. "What worries me the most," said the lead officer after hearing all the statements, "is that Mr. Mauricio Almeida probably already knows you're here. If he has as much influence as you say, he might try to flee or destroy more evidence." "We've already secured the company's documents," Otavio assured him. "My assistant is backing up everything, but we need to act fast." The officer nodded, picking up the phone. I'm requesting a search and seizure warrant for Mauricio Almeida's home and office, as well as a preventive arrest warrant. With this evidence, I believe the judge will authorize it without hesitation." While the officer made the necessary calls, Dr. Torres spoke with Otavio and Elisa in a private room. "Your case is solid, but we need to prepare for a legal battle," the experienced lawyer warned. "Mauricio will certainly hire the best lawyers in the country, and if he has political connections, as we suspect, he'll try to use influence to bury the case." "We can't let that happen," Elisa replied with renewed determination. "This isn't just about our money or the company. He tried to eliminate me. He could have caused a real disaster with that helicopter. And we still have the body in the coffin," Otavio remembered, shuddering. Whose body was it anyway? The question hung darkly in the air. None of them had the answer. "I'll request the exhumation of the remains," Dr. Torres decided. "It will be necessary to prove the death certificate fraud." The following hours were intense. A judge authorized the measures requested by the officer, and police teams were dispatched to Rio de Janeiro to execute the search warrants and arrest Mauricio. Paulo, Otavio's assistant, called again with disturbing news. "Mauricio is missing," he reported after the board meeting. "He said he was going home, but he never got there. His phone is off." "He must have been warned," Otavio concluded, frustrated. "Someone here is leaking information." The officer, overhearing the conversation, intervened. "I've considered that possibility. That's why I limited knowledge of the operation to only the agents directly involved. If he fled, it was for another reason." "My father," Elisa suddenly murmured. "Arnaldo was always close to Mauricio. Maybe he warned him." Otavio remembered how Arnaldo and Mauricio had talked at the funeral, casting glances in his direction. "Makes sense. Arnaldo never liked me. He always thought I wasn't good enough for his daughter," he commented bitterly. "But to go so far as to take part in a scheme to fake my wife's death, I can't believe it." "Maybe he didn't know everything," Elisa suggested. "Maybe Mauricio convinced him that I needed psychological help, that you weren't taking good care of me. My father has always been overprotective." The officer made a few notes. "We'll check Arnaldo Vieira's phone records. If he contacted Mauricio Almeida in the last few hours, that will strengthen the suspicion." By nightfall, new information had arrived. The police had executed the search warrants, finding incriminating documents in Mauricio's office, but the man himself was still missing. At his apartment, they found plane tickets to Uruguay for the next day and a significant amount of cash. "He was planning to flee either way," the officer concluded. "The case against him is getting stronger by the hour." "And what about my father-in-law?" Otavio asked, still troubled by Arnaldo's possible involvement. "We haven't found anything conclusive yet. Phone records show he spoke with Mauricio early today, but that alone doesn't prove complicity in the scheme," the officer replied. Elisa, who had remained silent for some time, finally spoke. "I want to speak with my father," she declared. "If he had any involvement, even indirectly, I want to hear his explanation." The officer considered the request. "We can invite him to provide clarification without making formal accusations yet," he agreed. "But I need you to understand that if he is involved, I will have to take the appropriate legal measures." Regardless of family ties, Elisa nodded, understanding the seriousness of the situation. That night, Otavio, Elisa, Celia, and Raquel were housed in a local hotel under police protection. Dr. Mateos had examined Elisa again and confirmed that she was progressing well, although she still needed care and rest. "I never imagined I'd be involved in something like this," commented Celia, as the two women drank tea in the small sitting room connecting the hotel rooms. "It feels like something out of a soap opera." Elisa smiled sadly, holding the teacup with still trembling hands. "I never imagined it either. I always thought the problems in my life were limited to having a workaholic husband and a controlling father," she confessed. "Now one of them might be involved in a scheme to make me disappear, and the other may have been complicit." I don't think your husband was really involved, observed Celia. You should have seen his desperation when Raquel told him you were alive. I've never seen anyone shift so quickly from devastated to determined. The observation touched Elisa deeply. Despite the distance of the past few years, the love Ottavio felt for her was still real. He lost his way, Elisa reflected. We started with so little, you know. Ottavio really came from nothing, the son of a bricklayer, like you said. He worked as a construction helper to pay for college. When we met, he was still living in a rented room on the outskirts of town. Celia listened attentively, realizing that Elisa needed this moment to organize her own thoughts and feelings. His first venture was so small, he renovated an old townhouse and divided it into studio apartments for students. He reinvested all the profits and started building affordable homes. He had a dream of transforming the real estate market, making it more accessible. Elisa continued, immersed in memories. At some point, the numbers got too big, the partners more influential, and he started drifting away from that original dream. I think he lost himself in the process. People change, Celia commented softly. Sometimes for the better, sometimes not, but they can also find their way back. I hope so. Elisa sighed thoughtfully, because despite everything, I still love him. The next morning, Arnaldo Vieira arrived at the police station, summoned to provide clarification. The 60-year-old man, impeccably dressed and with a formal demeanor, appeared genuinely shocked to see his daughter alive. "Elisa!" he exclaimed, turning pale as if he had seen a ghost. "How? How is this possible?" His reaction seemed authentic. He tried to hug his daughter, but Elisa remained distant, still uncertain about her father's involvement. "You knew, Dad?" she asked directly. "Did you know I wasn't dead, that Mauricio forged all this?" Arnaldo shook his head vigorously. "No, I would never be part of something like this, daughter," he assured her, his voice choked. "I was devastated. I believed I had lost you." The formal interrogation conducted by the chief investigator, with Dr. Torres present, revealed a disturbing story. Arnaldo admitted that for months, Mauricio had been insinuating that Ottavio was unstable, making risky decisions at the company and neglecting Elisa. He said he was worried about you both, that Ottavio could ruin everything he had built, Arnaldo explained, embarrassed. He suggested I help take over the presidency temporarily to protect everyone's interests, including yours. "And you believed him?" Ottavio asked incredulously. "You and I never got along, Ottavio," Arnaldo replied frankly. "I always thought you put business above my daughter. When Mauricio started talking about protecting her, about securing her future, it resonated with my own concerns." Elisa watched her father with a mix of disappointment and understanding. "When I heard about the accident, I was devastated," Arnaldo continued, genuine tears now running down his wrinkled face. "Mauricio was a pillar of support. He organized everything, the funeral, the press statements. He said you were in shock, Ottavio, that you needed space. And this morning," pressed the chief, "you spoke with Mauricio Almeida, correct?" Arnaldo nodded, seeming to age years in seconds. "He called me extremely agitated. Said Ottavio had had a nervous breakdown and kidnapped a psychiatric patient from a clinic in Petropolis, believing she was Elisa," he confessed, now clearly disturbed by his own naivety. "He asked me to help manage the situation discreetly to avoid scandal. He suggested I make statements to the shareholders, preparing them for the possibility that Ottavio might be declared mentally unfit." "And you agreed?" Elisa asked, her voice trembling. "God forgive me. Yes." Arnaldo bowed his head. "I was about to speak with our family lawyer to discuss legal procedures when I received the summons to come here." The silence that followed was heavy. Arnaldo had not conspired directly against his daughter, but his distrust of Ottavio and blind faith in Mauricio had facilitated the criminal plan. "Mr. Vieira, your actions do not constitute a crime, based on what we've uncovered so far," the chief informed him, "but you were manipulated in a way that enabled a serious criminal scheme. I'm willing to fully cooperate," Arnaldo guaranteed, still in shock. "If I had the slightest suspicion, my daughter means everything to me." Elisa finally approached her father, gently touching his shoulder. "I know you would never intentionally hurt me," she said softly. "But your distrust of Ottavio put us in danger. He's not perfect, but he loves me, Dad. And he risked everything to save me when he found out I was alive." Arnaldo looked at Ottavio, who stood at a respectful distance, allowing the father-daughter moment to unfold. "I was wrong about you," Arnaldo admitted, extending his hand to his son-in-law, "and I ask forgiveness for that." Ottavio accepted the gesture, understanding that everyone there had, in some way, been a victim of Mauricio's manipulations. The investigation continued intensively in the following days. The exhumation revealed that the body in the coffin belonged to an unidentified woman, likely a homeless person. The discovery added the crime of concealment of a corpse to the already extensive list of charges against Mauricio. The search for Ottavio's former partner intensified, with alerts issued at airports and border crossings. His brother, Jorge Almeida, was located and arrested as an accomplice in the financial scheme. During his testimony, Jorge revealed disturbing details about the scope of the fraud. The original plan was simply to divert money from the company through fraudulent contracts with Serra Azul Empreendimentos, Jorge explained, trying to minimize his involvement. When Elisa started discovering the irregularities, Mauricio decided she had to be removed. He said it would be temporary, just to keep her away until we could transfer all the money to offshore accounts. He never mentioned faking her death. Recovered financial records showed that the embezzled amounts had already exceeded $15 million, with projections to reach $50 million in the coming months, if the scheme had not been uncovered. 1 week after the investigation began, Mauricio Almeida was finally located in a luxury hotel in Punta del Este, Uruguay. International police arrested him and began extradition procedures. Upon receiving the news, Ottavio felt an indescribable sense of relief. Mauricio's capture meant the imminent danger had passed. Elisa was safe. They remained in Teresopolis during this period, staying at the same discreet hotel, under reduced but constant police protection. Elisa was gradually recovering, both physically and emotionally. Dr. Mateus continued to oversee her case, pleased with the progress. Celia and Raquel stayed with them, having become an essential part of the strange family formed by circumstance. Donna Josefa visited regularly, bringing homemade treats and the maternal affection everyone needed at that moment. Arnaldo also joined the group, staying in a room at the same hotel. His relationship with his daughter and son-in-law was slowly being rebuilt, now based on a deeper and more truthful understanding. One quiet afternoon, as everyone had coffee on the hotel balcony overlooking the mountains of Teresopolis, Ottavio made an unexpected announcement. "I've been thinking a lot about the future," he began, looking especially at Elisa, "about what really matters in life." Everyone at the table paid attention, sensing something significant was coming. "I've decided to completely restructure our company," Ottavio continued. "I'm going back to our roots, to what first motivated me, building decent, affordable housing for those who truly need it." Elisa looked at her husband with surprise and emotion. "The first project of this new phase will be a planned community in the region where Celia and Raquel live," he explained, smiling at the two, "with a daycare center, school, community center, and of course a well-equipped library." Raquel let out a squeal of joy, while Celia tried to hide her emotion. "Ottavio, this is—" Elisa began, but her voice faltered. "It's what I always wanted to do deep down," he finished. "I just lost my way. You tried to show me with your social projects, with your dedication to people. Now I understand what you were trying to teach me." Arnaldo watched the scene with a mixture of admiration and reflection on his own prejudices. "Count on me for this new path," his father-in-law offered. "I have contacts in the education sector who can help with the school and the library." Ottavio nodded in thanks, recognizing the gesture as a genuine offer of reconciliation. "And there's one more thing," he added, turning specifically to Celia and Raquel. "We'd like to officially welcome you both into our family, not as employees or protégés, but as an integral part of our lives." "What do you mean?" Celia asked, confused. Elisa spoke up, holding her husband's hand. "We'd like to adopt Raquel if you both agree," she explained gently. "And you, Celia, could live with us, have your own space, work on the social projects with me, or follow your own path with our support." Raquel looked at her mother, her eyes sparkling with expectation. "I don't want to separate mother and daughter," Elisa quickly clarified. "It would be an expanded family, you see. Raquel would have two mothers, a father, a grandfather, and more opportunities than we could provide separately." Celia was visibly moved. For a long moment she couldn't find any words. "Will you give me time to think?" she finally asked. "It's a very big decision." "As much time as you need," Ottavio assured her. "This isn't a time-limited offer. It's a door that will always be open." That night, after everyone had retired, Ottavio and Elisa remained on the balcony of their room, gazing at the city lights below and the starry sky above. "I thought I had lost you," Ottavio said, hugging her from behind, his chin resting on her shoulder. "When I saw the coffin being lowered into the grave, a part of me died with it." Elisa turned in his arms to face him. "In the last few years, we had already lost each other a little, even while living under the same roof," she observed sadly. "Did we really need all of this to find each other again?" Ottavio reflected on the question, caressing his wife's face. "Maybe. Sometimes we need to lose something to understand its true value," he replied honestly. "I had become obsessed with building an empire, forgetting why I started and for whom I was building it." "And now?" Elisa asked gently. "Now I know I want to build a life with you, a life that also makes a difference for other people," Ottavio replied. "Like you've always done with your projects." Elisa smiled, resting her head on her husband's chest. "I think we need a new beginning," she suggested. "Leave behind the mansion, the luxurious office, all those symbols of what drove us apart." "I agree," Ottavio nodded. "I already have some ideas. There's a beautiful house in Itaipava, surrounded by nature, spacious but cozy, perfect for an expanded family." Elisa understood the reference and smiled. "You really want to adopt Raquel," she noted, not as a question, but as a recognition. "That girl taught me more about courage and loyalty in 3 days than I've learned in a lifetime of business," Ottavio replied sincerely. "And yes, I want to offer her every possible opportunity, but more importantly, I want her to know she is loved and valued for who she is." Silent tears streamed down Elisa's face. This was the Ottavio she had fallen in love with years ago, the man with solid values and a generous heart who had become temporarily lost in ambition and success. "Thank you for finding me," she whispered, hugging him tighter, "for not giving up when everything indicated I was gone." "I'll always find you," Ottavio promised, "no matter where, no matter how." Months later, a new life had begun for everyone. Mauricio Almeida faced trial for multiple crimes, including attempted murder, kidnapping, financial fraud, and document forgery. His brother Jorge had made a plea deal, revealing details of the entire scheme and implicating other influential participants. Ottavio's company underwent a complete restructuring, focus on quality affordable housing and sustainable community development. Arnaldo became an active partner, contributing his experience and contacts. Elisa took over the direction of the newly created Novo Amanhecer Foundation, dedicated to educational projects in underserved communities. The first community center was already under construction in Rocinha, including a library, an element that had marked the beginning of her bond with Raquel. Celia partially accepted the family's proposal. She agreed that Raquel would be legally adopted by Ottavio and Elisa, ensuring her daughter access to the best education and opportunities she could never provide alone. However, she maintained her independence by accepting a coordinator position in the Rocinha project, where her leadership skills and knowledge of the community were invaluable. The expanded family moved to the house in Itaipava, a welcoming space surrounded by nature, where Raquel had her own room, decorated with shelves full of books. Celia had a nearby apartment and spent weekends at the main house, staying present in her daughter's life while building her own professional path. On a sunny Sunday afternoon, while everyone was having lunch in the garden, Raquel, now formerly Raquel Vieira, Mendes, made a comment that deeply touched everyone. "Do you know what the coolest thing about this whole story is?" she asked, looking around the table. "That we kind of saved each other." Everyone smiled, recognizing the wisdom in the girl's words. "What do you mean, dear?" Elisa asked, curious. "Well, I saved you when I told Uncle Otavio you were alive," Raquel explained. "But you had already saved me before, with the books and the school. And then Uncle Otavio saved everyone when he went after you. And now we're helping save other kids with the foundation." Otavio nodded, moved by the girl's insight. "It's a chain of salvation, isn't it?" he commented. "Every act of kindness, every act of courage saves someone in some way. And it's just beginning," Elisa added, looking lovingly at the family they had built. "Every life we touch can touch many others." As the sun began to set over the mountains of Itaipava, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, the family remained together in the garden. Not the kind of family any of them would have imagined in the past, but the family that destiny, with its unexpected twists, had gifted them. A family reborn from the ashes of a forged tragedy, stronger and more authentic than it ever could have been without the challenges they had faced together. A family that had learned, in the hardest way, that true value is not in accumulated wealth or empires built, but in the bonds created, the hands extended in moments of need, and the courage to start over, even when all seems lost. The end. Dear reader, if this story touched your heart, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Share your opinion in the comments. Do you think money and power are worth more than family ties? Leave a like and, most importantly, subscribe so you don't miss our next inspiring, heartwarming stories.